Now I'm guessing if you're watching this, you've probably thought about taking your car to the track. Well, I finally took mine to the track for the first time, and I'm going to tell you all about my experience right now.
Knowledge is king. Knowledge is king. Knowledge is king.
Now I have about 5 years of autocross experience, so I've been driving a bit, but I've never gone to the track. My V-Sport is a little heavy and a little long to be used at most short autocross tracks, and so I'm a little bit of a disadvantage to like the Camaros and Mustangs, but it holds its own. So I wanted to take it to the track where it could really stretch its legs, and I signed up for a track day at Thunderhill Raceway, about 2.5 hours north of the San Francisco Bay Area where I live. The event was hosted by OnGrid. Be sure to check them out, link in the description below. Now, I had a great time at the track, and not only am I going to show you on-course footage, but I'm going to share with you my experience for the day, everything including my arrival to the track, getting the car set up, a summary of the driver's meeting, the people and the cars I met, as well as the true cost of going to the track. Now to start off, I'm going to give you footage from one of my best laps of the day, but I want you to keep something in mind. This is after already an hour of seat time, getting to know my line, my entry and exits, but I had to handle one very important limitation, and that was my brakes. You see, in the first session, I realized that the V-Sport was a little fast for its brakes. I was already getting brake fade, I was even getting pulsation, like the rotors were warping, something I'd never felt in autocross or street driving. But track speeds and braking, it's a whole different animal. So I had to modify my driving. You're gonna see I don't really go balls out on the straights. The V-Sport is capable of probably nearly 130 miles an hour on the front straight at Thunderhill, but there's no point if I can't get slowed down enough to make the first turn. So I didn't waste my energy, and I just would enter the turns as fast as I could without going too crazy on the straights. I mean, most of the time at least. So keep that in mind. I mean, the brakes, they should be fine. They are the same brakes that go on the Camaro SS and the Z51 Corvette, at least very, very similar. And even those guys though, they complain that they're not quite up to a full track day. And there are other limitations, I'll talk about them in the video. So go ahead and check out this video and I'll get to the rest afterward.
All right, give me a countdown. Now. There you go. What were we looking at there? 79-ish? Close.
I arrived at Thunderhill around 7 a.m. Since it was far from where I lived, I stayed in a nearby hotel, so I'd be rested for the day. 7 a.m. was early enough, I think. I pulled in and parked the car in a spot I liked, and I began to set up. I already had all my important tools and supplies ready in a box, so it was pretty easy to unload. This is a lot like autocross for me. I didn't really need most of these supplies, but I knew that I wouldn't want to be without them if I did need them. If I'd forgotten anything though, there was a gift shop nearby with some essentials. Also, don't worry about leaving your stuff unattended. True track people aren't generally going to mess with your stuff. I'll give you some more details about how I prepared my car for the track after the first session. I went inside the main building and confirmed my registration, and after that I had actually quite a bit of time before the driver's meeting, so I bought some hot coffee and tried to stay warm. I explored the grounds and made sure my car was ready. At the driver's meeting, we discussed the course and how the different groups operate. Today's session is on Thunderhill's East course, nearly 3 miles long. There are 4 track configurations at Thunderhill. I'm in the first group, where the least experienced people are. To be in group 2, you need at least 4 track days experience. The rules for the first group are primarily that there's no passing without a point by. A point by is when the car ahead of you recognizes that you're faster and gives you permission to pass by pointing out the window toward the side of the car they wish for you to pass on. This is the only time you're allowed to pass someone in Group 1. Secondly, the rules for Group 1 state that passing is only allowed on the appropriate straight sections of the track that are long enough to allow a point by. We also discussed the flags and flagging stations along the course and how to handle situations where if there's an accident or if you spin out or go off course, there are plenty of penalties for reckless behavior or excessively poor driving skills, and I think the system does a good job of keeping everybody safe. A lot of what's covered in the meeting is included in the literature from the links provided in the sign-up email from OnGrid. On the course, Rod primarily gave me tips on the appropriate racing line for each turn and how to handle the idiosyncrasies of Thunderhill. Of course, the first thing I wanted to do was go fast, but I learned quickly how turns at speed are nothing like autocross. Although the G-forces are similar, you don't have the fear of going into the grass and mud at 80 miles an hour. Thankfully, there aren't many walls at Thunderhill, but there are a few tricky turns and elevation changes, and those are definitely good for a little pucker factor, if you know what I mean.
I don't like it. You just gotta trust the car.
All right, we did our first practice lap just to start to get to know the track, and already the VSport's brakes just aren't holding up. They're getting hot, fading already, and I wasn't even going that fast, I feel like. So I don't know if there's something up with the brakes. They've been there a while in the car. Plenty of pad, but it doesn't seem to be handling the heat, so maybe a different pad compound next time is probably what's going to be important. So this may slow me down for the whole day, but I'm still going to get out there, learn the track, learn the line, and have fun, of course. All right, we had our download meeting, which means just check in after the first round to make sure that we didn't have any issues with the track or how people are behaving. So now it's time to go back to the car, make sure my tire pressures are good, talk to the instructor, put my tow hook in, I guess, and see if my brakes hold up.
A couple days before, I changed my brake fluid to something more suitable for the track, a Motul RBF 600. I checked my brakes condition as well, and I had like 5 millimeters of pad, and I thought that would be good. But I'm thinking my brake issues may have stemmed from the fact that the pads are like rather old and tired, and I didn't even know what the compound was. And most street compounds aren't even good for the track anyway. A lot of people want something that's good for track and street, but it seems that really you just need a separate set of track pads. For any street ability in pads, you're losing track ability and vice versa. So I know I'll have some track pads next time, and I've already ordered some slotted rotors from StopTech as well. After the first session, I found out I had lost a couple of my magnetic numbers, so I had to go with the good old tape numbers. Also, I wanted to see how much tire wear I had just from one session. It wasn't too bad. In addition to brakes, there are some other car prep items that you may want to consider. OnGrid actually sent me a whole checklist of car prep items to review. Here's some of the most important ones. Number 1, you gotta have a tow hook, and not just the decorative kind. You need something that works. You can even use the ugly factory tow hook like I did. But don't go and buy a cheap one on Amazon. Good ones are actually a pretty penny, and you'll probably want to invest in that. Next, you'll want some paint protection. My car's covered in XPEL Ultimate in these areas, but you may want to consider at least some temporary track protection or just painter's tape, especially in these areas over here. Also, you should remove your center caps. It's technically required, but a lot of people don't. However, I've lost a couple center caps, and so I don't really want to lose another one. When you want to get good track times, tires are about as important as brakes. I run Bridgestone RE71R tires. A lot of people just use these for autocross or track-only tires, but I actually run them on the daily because they are DOT legal. They're just a bit noisy and they wear out quick, but they are the most popular track tires suitable for the street. Also, you may have noticed I'm not even running my front splitter because it is cracked and I'd hate to see it break away at the track and endanger me or somebody else. So check your car for these kind of problems.
There you go.
That was the second track session. Brakes are getting probably a little worse. I'm sure my rotors are warped at this point, so I guess I'm getting new brakes soon, and a great opportunity for another how-to video, I suppose.
Alright, I have some time before my next run, so I'm going to show you my camera and data acquisition equipment setup. To capture all the fun as well as having information to look back on and compare to my sessions, I've set up 2 GoPros and a timing system. Starting from the rear, there's this Olympus ME51S stereo microphone. It works great, but I'm getting a lot of distortion as you may have heard, so I'm going to upgrade the wind muff. This cable runs into the trunk and through the back seat pass-through. From there it connects to the GoPro adapter that allows external audio to connect to my Hero 7. That's mounted on the sunroof by a suction cup and a long extension bar. Since I'm collecting over an hour of media, I'm supplying the camera with power from the cigarette lighter port in the back that has a USB adapter installed. In the front of the car, I have my GoPro Hero 4 monitoring the gauges. This is also powered by USB and it runs under some of the trim into the center console USB ports. Suction cup mounted near the mirror and out of my line of sight is this older Android phone, and I use it solely for track and autocross purposes. Using the Track Addict app by HP Tuners, I can record my laps at Thunderhill with its built-in track templates. It uses the phone's GPS to monitor and time your progress, and it breaks everything down by sector on the course. You can later use this info to make the overlays that you've seen on my on-course video footage, and it also collects extra data from the car's onboard diagnostics port. All that information comes off of this rather cheap Bluetooth adapter. Because it's cheap, it doesn't really pull a lot of parameters every second, but it's enough. I can get extra temperatures and data points off the car's ECUs, such as oil, manifold, and transmission temperatures, boost, fuel pressure, timing, etc. There are definitely better systems out there, but this one's really great for the price if you have an Android phone. Alright, let's check out some highlights from session 3.
That again?
So how fast do you think we can go on that curve?
I think you can take that one flat out.
Holy shit.
Whoa!
In session 3, as I pushed the car harder, I was realizing that the traction control was kicking in a lot more than I wanted, but that's because I didn't put it into StabiliTrack competitive mode that allows the car to slide just a little more, so I made sure to change that and I had a lot more fun.
Alright, third run of the day is done. Good time, getting better, you know, as I should, I guess. Just to learn a little something. But the brakes are still not hanging in there, so I don't go flat out on the straights. There's no point if I'm gonna kill my brakes having to slow it down from like 120 or something. So I'm taking it easy there, but I'm pushing it harder in the curves and the exits. So 2 more runs and we'll see how much better we can get.
After session 3, it was time for a lunch break. The food was actually pretty good from the on-site grill. I got to have a chat with James, the owner of the Porsche GT3 that was parked next to me, and his instructor Nick, who drives an F80 BMW M3. Be sure to check out Nick's channel and his Instagram for some good racing videos. With some extra time in my hands, I decided to explore some more, and I actually came across another rare V-Sport. I chatted with the owner, Ken, for a bit. He's got a trifecta tune, and he was actually experiencing the same brake issues as me. So at least I know it wasn't necessarily something wrong with my car specifically. track for the 4th session, I was starting to feel more confident in the car, at least with Rod in the car with me. I wasn't quite as nervous as the crests on turn 3 and 5, and I was able to manage the front and rear bias of the car better and get a feel for when the tires are breaking loose. The V-Sport actually has automatic tensioning seatbelts, so when it thinks there's a chance of an accident, it'll cinch down on you, and it was definitely doing that more and more often, which is a good sign for me as far as finding my limits.
But I can tell you're going faster on the corners because the seatbelt's trying to kill me.
Thanks to the StabiliTrak competitive mode, the car allows you to push your boundaries a little further, even letting you slide a bit, and it only kicks in when absolutely necessary. The car's track mode also made for smoother throttle input and better gear selection.
All right, we're done with round 4 on the track. I felt, a little more improvement. That's good. What I'm focusing on is trying to enter the turns a little faster, but I've certainly taken some of the turns overall much faster. Scared myself a lot, just unbelievable. Hanging onto the steering wheel so tight and just hoping that those tires will just grip the road, because once they let loose, it's not fun. The brakes were a little better, surprisingly, on this round, but we still got the problem. Really enjoyed working with the instructor, Rod. He's been good and laying off me whenever, as I get better and letting me make my own decisions, but still giving the feedback where it's important. So really appreciate that. He was well worth it. I'm gonna feel a little nervous when I don't have him in the car next time I come to a track day, but otherwise it's been really great.
Now, you've already seen one of my better laps from session 5, but most importantly, I was trying to improve each sector individually. What I like about the Track Addict app is that it can give you the theoretical lap time. It does this by looking at all 6 sectors of Thunderhill, and over the 5 to 6 laps of the session, it can add up the best times from each sector and tell you what kind of times you could have been running. Of course, that is if you were driving consistently and you didn't have anyone slow in front of you. I'm not sure how accurate this is, but it's an interesting piece of data. I love how the app allows me to compare the speeds and G-forces between different laps. I can even make the app show a race against myself on the map so I can see where I was faster or slower.
All right, I had to just jump on the video right away. That was incredible. I mean, just pushing the car to the absolute limit that time, gaining a few miles per hour on the entries and exits. So much fun. My arms are tired. I probably got a little headache from tensing up a bit, but damn, that was so much fun and probably worth every penny. All right, now time to clean up and head home.
After session 5, it was time to put everything away and go home. On my last lap though, the low fuel light actually came on. I had to take it easy on the last lap in the turns to ensure that there was no fuel starvation to the pump. I started that session with 1/4 of a tank. I couldn't believe it. Overall, I used a whole tank of gas at the track that day. It was 115 miles of driving and I averaged 7.5 miles to the gallon. Now, speaking of using up gas, I want to tell you more about the true costs of doing a track day. Now, when I signed up for the event, it was $135 for early bird entry and up to $200 for late entry. I was somewhere in the middle, so it was about $150. It doesn't sound too bad, right, for a full day of fun driving your car? Well, there's more than that little bit of money going out of your pocket. You need to think long term. First of all, I did stay at a hotel the night before because the track was far away and I wanted to be rested for this early morning event. So that would have been about $120, but thankfully I had Marriott points. But something to consider. Next, food for the day, right? I spent about $30 in food. But then there's that gas. I spent $65 just for the gas used at the track because I went through a full tank. Then the drive up to the track and back home. Overall, I spent $150 in gas just for this event. The next costs are not like the bills flying out of your wallet. There's something you need to think about long term. First of all, my tires. Now, I do have a softer compound tire, so I probably used about 1/5 of my tread that day. That's about $240 of rubber that I left right on the track. Now, if you have street tires like the Michelin Pilot Super Sports, those maybe you'll burn 1/10 of, I don't know, maybe 1/6 of, but you're probably looking at $100 to $150 of rubber. at the track. Next are the brakes. For my car, just the front pads are about 40 bucks if I just want to get the most basic pads, but those aren't pads you want to use at the track. You want something at least a little more aggressive, so think maybe $80 for the front pads. A lot of people say that pads are only good for a couple of track days, so right there you're spending at least $40 for one track session. However, I highly recommend you get real track pads, at least I've learned that, and real track pads, they're like $200 or more. So think about that, $100 in brakes just for that track session. Whew, okay. What else? Brake bleeding. At least I did my own brake bleeding and fluid exchange, but I spent, about $30 in brake fluid to exchange, and that needs to happen at least a couple times a year if you're doing track days. So about $15 for one track session, we'll call it, in brake fluid. Now, thankfully, I didn't have any excursions off the track, and so there's no damages to my car. But all in all, yes, you're looking at $500 to $800 just for a track day. So if you have the money and a car that's reasonably great at the track, I highly recommend you do it. And I also recommend you get an instructor. I think you'll have more fun because it'll allow you to push the car a little more to the limits and to do it safely. Now, there are a lot more events around you than you think. Be sure to check out motorsportreg.com. It has all the race events nearby. I was surprised to find out that really I've got 4 options of tracks near me. Now, autocross is a little more accessible, and that's listed on motorsportreg.com usually as well. And that's only, $100 a day, so that's not bad. And also check out Facebook groups. There's plenty of groups and people that are willing to help you get started. Now, if you have any suggestions on how to conduct a good track day, how to save money, or just tell us about your first track day, I would love to hear about it in the comments. And I'm sure the viewers would love to hear your recommendations on track brake parts. If you found this video entertaining, please hit the like button, and your subscription is really important to help support the channel, so please subscribe and hit that bell if you want to find out when the next videos come out. Thanks so much for watching the Jet Fuel Only channel. I'll see you next time.